Well, hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is MockALove and today we're taking a look at a very pleasant machine. The one that works hard to punch above its pay grade and is arguably the best looking and the best feeling SUV of its segment. The 2019 Mazda CX-5 Turbo. Some of you might already know my affinity for the Mazda brand. After all, I daily drive a 2005 Mazda Speed Miata, and there's two of these in my immediate family. So needless to say, my family loves their Mazdas. But needless to say, as an automotive journalist, wannabe, I will do my best to be as objective as possible. Despite all that, you can disagree with me, but I believe that this is the best looking compact SUV on the market today. It's elegant, yet very aggressive. These very distinct lines that drag from the nose of the car all the way across the hood and into the A-pillar that hug the A-pillar so nicely. These sharp lines that do not quite go across the entire car, but they just seamlessly dissolve into the bodywork and then appear again when they get closer to the rear. It truly is a very, very good looking design. For 2019, the signature trim was introduced, and which this is, and it came with a few interior goodies, but most importantly, it came with a much needed engine upgrade. Under the hood, you'll find the Skyactiv 2.5-liter 4-cylinder turbo that puts out 250 horsepower on 93 octane gas and 227 horsepower on regular gas. But despite the grade of the fuel, it still squeezes out 310 pound-feet of torque at 2,000 RPM, always available to you at your foot at the blip of the throttle. And all of this goodness is paired to not to a CVT, but a crisp and quick to shift 6-speed automatic transmission. And in addition, they also introduced the Drivetrain Plus all-wheel drive system that gives a little tiny little corrections to the engine input to shift the weight from back to front and front to back depending on the slippage of the wheels.
We make the engine reduce power output ever so slightly when the driver turns the wheel, and this pitches the car forward, puts a little bit more weight on the front tires, making them respond more directly and most importantly more consistently.
And also apparently to help with the prevent the overcorrection at high speeds and emergency situations. But I'm obviously not going to try that. All of that goodness propels this vehicle 0 to 60 in 6.1 seconds out of a family SUV. Love it. The same engine also came with a GT trim, which was a bit below the signature and was about $1,500 cheaper and lacked some of the interior material goodness, but still a very good option and very worthy contender anyway. However, with all the added performance, it is worth noting that the gas consumption also got worse as well. 9.8 liter for 100 kilometers for the turbo signature trim, as opposed to around 9 liters for the non-turbo version. Now, the interior of the CX-5 is an excellent place to be. The signature trim came with the Cocoa Napa leather seats, which are brown enough to not be able to tell the difference between the black leather components of the interior and the Cocoa Napa leather seats and the Cocoa trim as well. You can really tell the difference only when there's direct lighting on both of them, but in most lighting conditions it's too close to black, and needless to say, I'm not the biggest fan of the color itself. I wish they were a bit more elaborate, with their color and a bit more elaborate with the intent of the color. But the reason why I don't like them, I think, could be explained by the official press kit from Mazda Canada. The new 2019 CX-5 Signature composes elegant features such as Cocoa Napa leather seats that appeals to mature sensibilities. That would explain it. Besides these brown leather seats, the Signature also gets the genuine abachi wood trim across the entire dashboard and on the door panels as well, both in the front and in the rear. It looks fantastic. Everything in this interior looks really good. The overall theme of the interior is simplicity, and I love how minimalistic it is. It's definitely my cup of tea. I don't like interiors that are far too complicated. I like simplicity. I like where you know where everything is intuitive. You get the volume knob right here, right where your hand would be resting, and you get the HVAC controls. They are very logically laid out. They're exactly where you'd expect them to be. Everything is covered in either very nice feeling leather or soft touch plastic or wood or satin chrome. They're very minimal high gloss areas, except for two of the most high contact areas in the entire interior, which is around the gear shifter and on the door panels where the window switches are. Other than that, there is not a single speck of piano gloss black, except maybe around the screen. The infotainment screen, I don't like it too much. It doesn't really integrate into the interior. It just feels glued on, feels tacked on. It's not very well integrated in the interior, but overall everything feels solid. It feels good. Everywhere you look, everything you touch on a regular basis feels very high-end and a lot more expensive than this car actually is. We also get the sunroof, and one of the features that I did not know I needed in my life was the frameless rearview mirror with integrated garage opening controls. Very, very convenient if you live in a house. Now in the rear, we do have a reasonable amount of space for a 5-6 person like me. The front seat is set up for a 5-6 person. I have more than enough leg room. I'm very comfortable. I do have an armrest here with 2 cup holders and heated rear seats as well, which is fantastic. Other than that, not much to say about the rear. Very nice in the back indeed. I don't mind spending long trips in the back of this. Now the cargo space is pretty much the smallest in the class, at around 30 cubic feet, and it's also almost tied with the Kia Sportage of the same year, but it's quite a bit smaller than the CR-V and the RAV4. I believe the CR-V at 39 or so, and RAV4 at around 37 cubic feet. But despite the CX-5 having the lowest cargo capacity of the class, it does have a very unique feature that is only shared with the Tiguan. And that is being able to independently drop the middle portion of the seat, which is really useful for when you have to transport snowboards or skis or anything long without having to basically get your rear passengers out of the car. Not to mention, you can drop the seats both from the cargo space and from inside the car. The 2019 CX-5 Turbo has a lot of strengths, but it also has a fair share of weaknesses as well. Primarily in the tech and the infotainment department. The infotainment can get pretty laggy. It can get pretty slow. Certain odd things can happen to it, like you'll be scrolling through maps and then certain buttons stop working, the zoom function stops working, so you have to then press the back button, go back in. Also, it's very unintuitive, and this joystick, honestly, sometimes it just drove me absolutely crazy. The joystick moves up, down, left, and right, but it also rotates. And oftentimes when you're looking at the screen, it's not always clear what the rotation does and what the moving up and down, left, right does on the screen. It's not clear. And when you try to figure out how to get to this specific button on the screen that, God, you wish this screen was touchscreen and you can just hit it and it will take you straight there. No, you have to either scroll through it or you have to toggle through it. And it's not always clear. And it's very confusing. Even when you are at a standstill, it's even more confusing when you're driving. And I don't think it's safe. I really don't think it's safe. It should not be this confusing and this unintuitive. Sometimes certain parts of the infotainment, it's as clear as day. You know, you toggle it up, toggle it down, left, right, and it all makes sense. You know, if it's a list of things, yes, the scroll function works well, and it makes sense to you. It makes sense to a human brain. But sometimes it is just nonsensical. Another thing that just drove me crazy in the past few days, it happened twice actually. I had Android Auto connected and I was just driving around. I had maps open, directions going. My music was playing on Spotify. I get a phone call. After I'm done with the phone call, I hang up and the music stops playing. There's zero sound. I check all the volume buttons on my phone, on the car, and I change the song back and forth, and zero sound. What I had to do both times, I unplugged the phone, plugged it back in, and then the music started playing almost instantaneously. Very, very frustrating. Just very frustrating, especially when you're driving. But I have some more gripes with Android Auto as well. This screen is usually touchscreen, but as soon as you plug the phone in, it stops being touchscreen. So the only way to navigate around Android Auto is with this damn joystick. This unintuitive, frustrating to use joystick. You get used to it. I do have to say that. You get used to it and you learn how to navigate it, but it might take a bit of time for you to actually learn it. Learn to navigate the nonsensical operations, and the way this thing works is just so damn frustrating sometimes. Also, while we're still on the topic of Android Auto and music, the Bose speakers are absolutely incredible. The sound is crisp, the highs, the lows, the bass, juicy, perfect. To the point that the owner said that some of the songs that he's been listening to for years, he started hearing new instruments when he bought this car. He started hearing the instruments that he didn't even know were there, the sounds in the song that he didn't even know were there before in his previous cars. This sound system is incredible. That's all I have to say. Now let's talk about some of the things that I don't like about the driving tech. The blind spot monitoring, light, and sound stay on for way too long. What do I mean by that? You're going in a lane, there's a car beside you or just a little bit behind you. You'll see a light in the rearview mirror that indicates that there's a car beside you in your blind spot. You know, you might want to avoid changing your lane. As soon as you hit the stalk to turn on your indicator, it produces this startling loud beep that used to terrify the hell out of me, but I got used to it. However, the car could be passing you and the car is literally in front of you. You're looking at the car through the windshield and you hit the stalk to turn the indicator on and start changing lane, and it screams at you still, thinking that the car is still beside you. So as I'm already changing the lane, I hit this a little bit, changing, you know, just start moving just a little bit. You hit the stalk, you turn on the indicator, it starts screaming at you. I am petrified out of my mind, thinking that somebody reappeared in my blind spot that I've already checked. It can get very startling sometimes. That was so scary, so scary. But you have to drive this car with that notion in mind that it is just too slow, and sometimes it will beep at you and yell at you, even if the car is already in front of you. One other thing that is very important to mention for safety purposes as well, the lane keep assist is simply not good. It's not very consistent at all, is what I mean. On multiple occasions, I would intentionally let go of the wheel and allow the car to drift onto a yellow line or a white line or a broken white line. And sometimes it will literally just vibrate the steering wheel. It will let you know that you're about to drift off into the inevitable doom. It will not get you back in the lane. It will not correct the steering wheel. It will not get you back in there. Sometimes it will do just that and it will correct you, but because it doesn't have the lane centering, it will not keep you in the middle of the lane. What it will do instead is it will make you drift towards the opposite line and the opposite end of the lane, and then from there just straight through the lane into, I don't know, the opposite end of the inevitable doom. It's terrifying. I would not trust that system with my life at all. It's not a good system. It's not good tech, and I cannot trust it whatsoever. I can only trust my eyes, my hands, and myself. Yeah, but I also want to talk about the good tech that this car has. The gauge cluster is really clean. I love the combination of digital and analog. It's very clear to read. It's very simple. It's very much a perfect blend of digital and analog, and sometimes you cannot really tell the difference where digital starts and analog ends. And it does have more functionality to it. In the infotainment screen, when you press the info button, you'll see the range. You can see trip A, trip B, lane keep assist. Unfortunately, it doesn't show anymore. I wish it showed maybe the name of the song that's playing, or maybe a little, a little indication of where you're going. Maybe just a little circle from Google Maps, kind of telling you, in 500 meters, turn left, turn right. All of that happens from the main screen. You don't really get that from the gauge cluster. I just wish the two were a bit more integrated. But that's really my main issue with the gauge cluster. One piece of tech that I do absolutely adore in this car is the heads-up display. It is really good. It is very crisp. You can see it almost all the time. The only times I was struggling to see it was when at night when I was close to a car in front of me, and certain types of paint will reflect the light so strongly that it might wash out the heads-up display. However, 99% of the time it'll be very crisp and clear. You see your speed. It does scan, the sensor in the front does scan the signs and the speed limits, even stop signs too. And it will tell you in the top right corner the speed limit, any signs that you might have to know. I did notice that on a couple occasions it did not scan the speed limits correctly. Like, I was on the highway just today, I was on the highway and it was showing 70 kilometers speed limit, which is, I know for a fact, is incorrect. It's 100 kilometers an hour speed limit on almost all 400 or all 400 series highways, but it was showing 70. It changed its tune in just a few seconds, but that does happen here and there. Other than that, I absolutely love this feature. A couple more things that I also cannot help but mention, because we live in Canada. Canada gets really bad winters. Snow, it's freezing, it's very miserable, and Canada also gets really hot and humid summers as well. You know where I'm going with this? Exactly. Heated steering wheel and cooled seats. Absolute perfection. The cooled seats, you have 3 settings of the cool seats. They are very loud, louder than the AC actually, a lot louder, but they're very effective, kicks in right away. Very, very good at keeping my toe heads nice and cool. And the heated steering wheel, okay, let's turn this off because it's quite loud. The heated steering wheel function only heats up the 9 and 3 portion of the steering wheel, unfortunately, but that's all you need basically for winter, right? That's where your hands usually would be resting, and by the time you're cruising and your hand is on the top, chances are it's been maybe 5 to 10 minutes and the car is nice and warm by then. But despite the lackluster tech, why don't we get to the best part of this review, the drive. Except this is not the same car you've been seeing all video. That's it. This is a 2018 CX-5 GT with a 2.5 liter non-turbo engine pushing at 187 horsepower and 186 pound-feet of torque. And it does not have the G-Vectoring all-wheel drive system. Instead, it has the regular previous generation all-wheel drive system from Mazda. I'm very happy that on this gloomy day, a friend of mine had a couple hours to bring this baby to me and trust me to drive it. All right. So finally driving the 2018 CX-5 2.5 liter non-turbo, 187 horsepower, 186 pound-feet of torque, sport mode, traction control off. We're on gravel road. I want to see how she does, and I want to see how big of a difference it really makes to have that turbo and extra 70 horsepower on 93 and extra, give or take, 30, 40. 40, yes, I'm a math man. 40 horsepower, extra 40 horsepower in that one, and almost double the torque. I'll see how she does. All right, 1, 2, 3. Okay. She tries. That's all I can say. You really don't feel the same amount of thrust and the same amount of power. There is no 310 pound-feet of torque at 2000 RPM. You really feel the difference. And now that we're on concrete, she takes a while to get to 100. Looking on the bright side, the steering is good. The steering is good, steering is responsive, it's decently sharp. It's not as planted as the turbo version. It really does not feel as planted. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if it has different suspension, but this feels like there is a bit more body roll. This doesn't have that plantedness. Well, don't get me wrong. The 2019 doesn't have much plantedness either. It is a tall car. However, it doesn't quite wobble like this one. This one, there's a tiny bit more wobble and you feel the difference. Why is it beeping at me? Oh, speed limit, I guess? Cool. All right. The other one doesn't do that unless the owner turned it off, of course. I thought they would be more similar than this. It rides differently. It drives differently. There's a very good chance that this drives differently because of the tires and because of the aftermarket wheels. But the suspension itself, it feels different. There's a bit more lean. There's a bit more lean in the turns, and when the balance shifts, there's a bit more lean. When I'm braking, I feel the car dive more than the 2019 version. It doesn't have the same appeal. That's how I can put it. It doesn't have the same appeal in the sense that the turbo version will entertain both a car enthusiast and a person who's just looking for regular transportation. Literally, my mother owns one and my brother owns one. My brother likes to drive. My mother just wants a good, nice, good-looking, comfortable transportation. She doesn't care about speed, acceleration, etc., etc. She just wants a nice interior. They both love it equally. To me, very important is the driving dynamics and the acceleration. This is more of a cruiser car. This is more of a getting around car, whereas the 2019 Turbo will also put a smile on your face, giant grin on your face on a back road. I don't know if this will, to be honest. And finally, the moment you've been waiting for. 2019 CX-5 Turbo on a gravel road. Let's get it. This car is an absolute riot, especially on gravel. And the G-Vectoring system, I'm assuming it's helping a lot. Nevertheless, the car is doing a fantastic job on the gravel. You feel the weight of the car, of course, but that's with any car on the gravel as well. But you really feel the all-wheel drive system just digging in and just hooking and just grabbing at the ground. Man, no compact family SUV should be this fun to drive and this capable as well. 310 pound-feet of torque at 2,000 RPM is absolutely incredible. This is so good, so good. I love it. I absolutely love it. I never expected to enjoy a family SUV as much as I am right now. And on the road, well, let's see how she does. Oh my God, man, wow. The amount of torque down low, it's crazy. In the process of my research for this review, I stumbled upon an article, I believe it was by Drivetrain, about the 2019 CX-5 Turbo, and they compared it to the GTI. And I really hate to be somebody who just reiterates what other journalists have already said, but I cannot get this thought out of my head. And it makes so much sense. The way this car behaves, the intake noise, even though it's heavily pumped in the GTI, the intake noise, the thrust, the low RPM thrust of the turbos, the steering, the heavy, precise steering, the way it handles, how composed it is, especially comparing to the CX-5, the non-turbo CX-5 from 2018. This car is a very different beast from the 2018 CX-5. In fact, I would say it feels like a GTI, except it's taller, a bit heavier, doesn't have floppy pedals, it does not have the DSG, but the way it handles, the way it behaves in the corners and the way it accelerates, even spec-wise, if you look at it, it's actually very similar. So, reiteration or not, it kind of makes sense. It just pulls, man. Oh my God. I'm so happy I got that perspective of driving the 2018 CX-5, the non-turbo version, to know what Mazda actually did to the CX-5. And I really want to praise this transmission as well, because it knows exactly what it's doing. It's quick, it's crisp, it shifts exactly at or just past 5,000 RPMs. Why? Because all the torque at 2,000 RPM and all peak horsepower is at 5,000 RPM. So that makes perfect sense. It literally keeps you lowering the RPMs to keep the acceleration and the dynamics going and at peak level for you. And there's only so much I can talk about the turbo and the 310 pound-feet of torque. What can I say? It's incredible. The way it thrusts you in the back of your seat, I don't think any compact SUV does that for this price point. Woo! Wow, this is great. This is great. I really like this car. And after you're done having fun on the back roads or gravel or snow or whatever it is that you're doing, you can just get on the highway and just cruise. It's a very comfortable cruiser. And it sounds so good while doing it. And the thing is, it sounds so much better up front than it is from the rear. It doesn't really have much of an exhaust note, and you can't really hear it from the inside, but you hear so much of that intake noise. You hear so much of that angry induction noise. It sounds so much angrier on the inside than it does on the outside. That's awesome. I was so certain that it comes from the speakers, that it's the Bose's engine enhancement, whatever software. Kind of like the GTI and the GTI GLI. Those are just criminal offenders as far as fake pumped-in noise. I was so certain that it comes from the speakers, but it doesn't. At least I don't think it does. I tried to find some sort of proof, any mention of anything like that anywhere on the internet, and I just couldn't. Everybody is stating that 2019 CX-5 Turbo does not have that engine enhancement software, that engine enhancement sound through the speakers, but the 2020 model does. I could not find anything. So if it's not through the speakers, kudos to you, Mazda, because this is awesome. It sounds fantastic, and you don't even have to fake it, I guess. As a final thought, here's some words of wisdom. If you're looking to upgrade, if you're looking to upgrade to a bigger vehicle, maybe you had kids recently, maybe you're just looking for something that's a bit more practical, you want that ground clearance. If that's what you're looking for, I can tell you with certainty, you cannot go wrong with the Mazda CX-5. If you're looking for an enthusiast-oriented family SUV for this price, for the price range, I don't think you will find it in a RAV4 or a Kia Sportage or the CR-V. I think this is exactly what you need to look for, and look no further. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.
Motherfucker. What the shit?
Now the interior.